The views and opinions expressed by the host of this show are his and his alone. They do not reflect the views of this network, his employer, any of the universities he attended, his family and friends or former roommates, any of the 5 Temptations, the 4 Tops, or any number of the Pips. They may or may not reflect the views of the other voices in his head. His dog, however, agrees with him 100%. And now, broadcasting live from a secure, undisclosed location deep in the heart of Texas, it's the Snarky Parenthetical. Here's your host. He's highly caffeinated and mildly irritated. Here's Lathan Watts.
All right, welcome back to the Snarky Parenthetical. Glad to have everybody back. Hope your week is going well. We are approaching, getting even closer day by day to the Christmas season, so thought tonight and maybe one more before Christmas, before we kind of take some time off, just talk about some stuff that affiliated with the Christmas season. And so I wanted to lead off with just Christmas movies.
Yes. Okay.
So there's lots of IMDb and AFI and all these people put out kind of ranking the best Christmas movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. I pay little to no attention to those. And so in my mind, there's kind of 2 categories. Like, I don't feel like you could really compare like It's a Wonderful Life to A Christmas Story. Right. So
I see what you mean.
I kind of like traditional kind of, I don't know if you call it like serious versus comedy, or like traditional or classic Christmas movies versus, more modern or whatever. But I would say, like, along the classic line, for me, it's A Wonderful Life.
Yep.
I mean, that's one of those, like,
yep.
Pretty much have to
Full
watch
agreement,
it.
Honestly.
Yeah, pretty much have to watch it every year. Do my best not to just become a blubbering mess.
Exactly.
Every father has had a moment where they've snapped at their kids the way Jimmy Stewart does, and that, and you're just like, yeah. So that one is kind of the be-all, end-all for me. I would say the original Miracle on 34th Street, also like a great, just classic, Christmas movie. And and I always forget the name of the movie that has White Christmas in. I think it's Holiday Inn. I think is the name of it. Bing Crosby.
Yes. I think it's Holiday Inn.
Yeah. It's hard to go wrong with that.
I don't think it's White Christmas.
Yeah.
White Christmas is also pretty good. But that's another, Mm-hmm.
So as far as classics, I would probably go with those.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more modern / maybe comedic, which are truly my favorites.
Right.
It's kind of it's not even like a 1 and 2, but maybe like a 1 and 1A, just sort of depending on what my what my current mood is. But there's
Die Hard, sequel to Die Hard.
Right. Yes. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Okay, I'm weighing in on. I know it's a constant debate, and I'm on Team Die Hard. It is a Christmas movie.
Excellent.
It's set in the Christmas season.
That's right.
There is, now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho. What? Okay.
That's all you need.
That's
to know.
Christmas, right?
Yep.
Welcome to the party, pal. Right. I mean, it was a Christmas party where things went sideways. Okay.
Right.
Things got real down there at the Nakatomi Tower. So
that
yes,
they did.
I am on Team Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
Excellent.
It's not one that I feel like I have to watch every year at Christmas,
right.
But I will say that I think it does qualify as a Christmas movie.
There we go.
So there's a few that I feel like I pretty much have to watch every year, and I should also say it doesn't necessarily, for me anyway, have to be like a movie. Like, there are some Christmas episodes of some great TV shows that are hilarious. The Christmas episode of The Office where Michael Scott does not get to be Santa because Phyllis is playing Santa, and then he decides to be Jesus and comes out and starts heckling everybody in character as Jesus is, I could watch that every day and laugh, but certainly at Christmas time, that's one you got to find. I think they took it off Netflix now.
One of the greatest.
That one's one. That's a classic
As
for
I say,
me.
too funny for Netflix, apparently.
I guess
the
so.
jokes were just too edgy.
Too
They're
good.
Like, it could
Yeah.
be offensive.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the Christmas episode of that Christmas episode of The Office.
Yep.
I would also say kind of a recent addition to my list,
Right.
but one that I would recommend if you haven't seen it. There was a Christmas episode of Community. I don't know if you're a
I love the
Community
show.
fan.
Oh, big fan.
Yeah.
Big
I
fan.
never watched it when it was actually airing.
Same. Yeah.
Discovered it on Netflix. Loved it. It is, I mean, it's over the top. It's just completely manic and,
Yes.
like, it's just crazy. Like every episode.
Oh, yeah.
But once I sort of figured it out, they spent like maybe 2 episodes introducing the characters.
Right.
And then just went ballistic after that.
Every episode for itself. It's just
Yeah.
It doesn't. And there's one of the great things about it is there are really great thread lines through.
Yeah.
all
Running
the
jokes,
episodes.
things that are carried through, but
But you can come in at any point.
at
too.
any point, any episode
be
can kind of
entertaining.
be standalone and still be funny. But the Christmas episode, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas,
Yes.
where it's done completely in stop motion animation, and I mean 2 words: Christmas pterodactyl. Right. I mean, what else do you need to know? Like if you. So, during
100%.
the lockdown, my kids and I were kind of working our way through several things on Netflix, and we were going through Community, and we came upon that episode, and I mean, just hollering, laughing.
Oh yeah.
And the first time we watched that, they were both like, "We have to watch this every Christmas." I
Yes.
was like, I'm in.
It's a tradition now.
Yep, it's added to the list. And
Yep.
so this year, that's kind of how we started our Christmas season. Like day after Thanksgiving, got the tree up, start the decorations and all that. And that night, the girls were like, "Can we watch Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas? Cue it up. Let's
Got
go."
yourself a deal.
Yeah. So a couple, there's a couple of like TV shows that have some really good Christmas episodes that I would include in this list. That aren't necessarily full length films, and that's definitely
100%. Oh yeah.
So for me, like sort of all time favorites, stuff I've got to watch every year. Like I said, it's not necessarily 1 versus 2. It's kind of 1A depending on the day. A Christmas Story, Ralphie and the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yes.
TNT runs it on a loop the entire day of Christmas,
That's right.
and I just turn it on and just leave it like pretty
Right.
much all day.
It's the background music to the
It is.
the day.
It is the score of Christmas at my house.
As it should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's so
Yes.
many lines, that are, memorable. Like the fragile, this must be Italian, and the leg lamp and
Yep.
the bully and all of this. But for me, like little things that are kind of subtle that really stick with me. There's a scene in the movie where, he's trying to bribe his teacher about his Christmas theme that he wrote about how he wants a Red Ryder
right.
BB gun. And so he shows up with like this giant fruit basket for his teacher. And it's just a moment, but he leaves the fruit basket on the table and he's standing there and he goes into this like dream sequence or whatever, and she's kind of like trying to snap him out of it, and she finally does, and he's kind of going back to his seat, and the kid playing Ralphie, as he's going back to his seat, he kind of turns back at the teacher and does this, like this little wink and this little point, and it kills me. And I don't know why. It's just little things like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like the director told him to do it, or if he improvised it as a kid or whatever. But
Right.
that's one of my favorite moments in that entire movie. Just him kind of looking back at the teacher, like
Yeah.
it's just hilarious to me.
The little details are often what makes for some of the classic moments. Well, for instance, the thing that gets me in the Christmas episode of The Office, or that one. There's a few good ones.
Yeah, there are. Yeah,
but I think it's that same one. Is Andy in the background,
right?
Just playing the sitar,
right?
Horribly, just hideous sounds coming out of the thing.
Yeah,
he's clearly never picked it up before.
Right,
and just decided, I'm a sitar player today.
I'm gonna play sitar today. Yeah.
And it just carries on in the background of whatever's going on.
It's just like a running joke back there.
See him, yeah.
Like in case what's right in front of you isn't funny enough, oh, by the way, here's a guy who can't play sitar trying to play sitar. Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, another thing I love about that episode, there's lots of stuff that's kind of been leaked out online since, like blooper reels and things like that.
Right.
If you watch the outtakes of them trying to film that episode when Kevin sits on Michael Scott's lap.
Oh, yes.
Even the final version that made it on TV, that part of him sitting on his lap, if you look over his shoulder, I just blanked on the actress's name, but Kelly on the show.
Oh, right.
You can see her kind of turn like this because she's laughing. And that's like, this is the only take we got, so we're just going to have to use
Mindy,
it.
right? Mindy Kaling?
Yes,
yeah.
Mindy Kaling, yes.
Yeah.
And she has to kind of turn her head this way, and you can kind of see her shaking a little bit because it's so good. And then,
That's right.
Yeah, and Steve Carell coming out as Jesus and just heckling people with the mic from the karaoke machine.
Yep.
Yeah, so... But for me, I mean, the be-all, end-all, the Christmas movie I have to watch every year is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yes, okay.
This movie came out in 1989. Okay, I saw it in the theater as a 13-year-old, and I think it was PG or PG-13 at the time. You know,
ratings were not what they
clearly
what they
they've changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But like 13-year-old me sitting there in the theater, just screaming laughing, and then, you know, like once it came out on video, right, like back in the day where you rented a video
cassette,
like a VHS tape, like bringing that home, like basically forcing my dad, like, you have to watch this movie because I knew he was just going to be beside himself.
Yeah.
And I laughed probably harder at him watching the movie than I did watching it the first time. But it has been just like this sort of family tradition ever since. Because I introduced my girls to it probably earlier than I should. But now it's sort of like this generational thing. Like, they probably laughed as hard at me laughing at it, just like I laughed at my dad laughing at it.
Right.
But yeah, I watched it with my kids when they were little, and I remember doing it, and my wife walking in the room because my kids, I mean, they were little when I put this on.
Wow.
And I've got the DVDs. I mean, I'm watching it, right?
Yeah.
And my wife walks in, she sees what's on the TV. She looks at the kids, she goes, "You're really letting them watch this movie?" And I was like, "Okay." I know every syllable of this movie. I have seen this movie so many times. I could literally start right now and tell you, start to finish, every word of this movie. It's like, I know every syllable of this movie, and I have a mute button.
There you go.
So it's all going to be okay.
Now that's the story.
Yeah. But, I mean, to her credit, she was like, You're right. You do know every syllable of that movie, and I trust you with the mute button. And so, you know, they were younger. I had to, use the mute button a little more.
A few times, yeah.
But
as they grow older every year, the mute button gets used a little less.
Yeah, I mean, So that is one of those I have seen so many times. When I was a freshman in college, first time kind of away from home, from December 1st until I left to go home for Christmas, my roommate and I watched that movie every day. And I mean every day.
Wow.
We started
dedication.
December 1. Okay, it's Christmas time, and this is what we're going to do. And it was like every day after class, like when the last class was over, get back to the dorm room, and I'd be like putting my key in the door, and I could hear it starting,
Awesome.
And just come in, drop the backpack, all right, let's go,
Yep, it's time.
Yeah, and then so like kind of the word kind of got out, and so people started coming to the dorm room to watch it, and by the time we got to like the last week before Christmas, there were probably 20 people crammed into this dorm room watching this movie, and it was like...
that's awesome.
I mean, it was just a group experience.
Exactly.
Right? Like, people would just yell out their favorite lines whenever they happened. Everybody has kind of a favorite character, favorite scene. I mean, it was just a raucous
became
viewing.
An event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I watched that movie every day, until I went home for Christmas. So when I tell you I know every word of that movie, I know every word of that movie. And And I remember like
Wow.
it was like one of the last times we watched it, and it got to be this thing almost like a Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Oh, right.
because everybody's in there, everybody knows it, people are yelling out lines and throwing stuff, and and it was,
Right.
but there was this one guy who's real quiet, very dry sense of humor. He had been there probably every day for probably a week.
Right.
I had never heard him quote anything in the movie. Like he just sits and watches, right, and just laughs. It's just
Takes
kind
it
of how
in.
he is. And then this one of the last times we watched it, it's coming up on the scene where the cat gets electrocuted.
Yes.
And then they're taking the chair out to the to the sidewalk, and Eddie's asking Clark about how much this chair set you back,
Uh-huh.
and they get up to the sewer, and Clark says, you smell that? And Eddie goes, fried pussycat, and and he's like, that thing had 9 lives. She just spent them all. Woo! And this guy who had never said a single word the entire time we watched it, when Eddie got to the woo, he just popped up, and that was the one thing that he said. Like, and it just happened to be quiet in the room, right? And this guy who's been there for like 2 weeks, not saying anything, just goes, woo, and the place lost it. I mean, everybody in there. Like, we had to pause the movie because the guys were just falling out of their chairs. Yeah, that cat had 9 lives. She just spent them all. Woo! And the look on his face when he says it, like, yeah. So yeah, I am unnaturally obsessed with that movie, and I think it's so funny to me because, and I know I've got family that watch this show. Okay, so I'm going to keep names out of this so that I don't hurt anybody's feelings. But I think that movie is so funny to me because I can identify people in my own family in that movie. Like,
That always makes it great when you can relate
right?
certain
Like,
people.
I remember watching it for the first time going, that's my uncle. Like,
Yes.
When Cousin Eddie, who is one of the greatest characters ever on film, okay, when he shows up in the leisure suit, okay,
Yes.
all right, I'm not naming names, all right, but any of my family who have watched this show before and have watched that movie probably know who I'm thinking of. People showing up at Grandma's house for Christmas, not quite in a leisure suit, but pretty close, okay, pretty close. And
Right.
I mean, Christmas at this house, growing up as a kid, my mom had 6 sisters and a brother. All right.
Oh, wow.
And for a while there, we were like all of them there at Christmas in my grandparents' house with all the kids, right? I mean, crammed into this tiny house, which was basically termites holding hands at this point. I mean, this house, like one bathroom. All right.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. One bathroom.
Ooh.
Enough food to feed an army.
Uh-huh.
The noise level, it's hard for me to describe, right? Because the conversations, like if you always want to be heard, you just kept getting louder. Like, I mean, it was just a solid wall of noise. There was always one or two of my mom's sisters that were always late, and so then the sisters are mad because we got to wait for so-and-so to get here so we can open presents, and so then, like, Christmas was not over until there was at least one screaming match, if not an actual physical altercation, possibly. I mean, you just never knew what was going to happen, right? And then eventually, like, certain uncle would show up just drunk out of his mind. I mean, just wander in. Like, Christmas isn't over until this guy comes stumbling through the house. Only man I've ever known in my life that could walk at a 45-degree angle. Like, and just look like he's just floating through everything. He just...
That's fantastic.
It's officially Christmas.
Yep.
Here he comes. And he just at this angle, just kind of weaving his way through traffic, all the way back to the very back room where he would just like disappear for a while.
You just got to do the lean, and you're like, how's
that possible? I mean,
laws of physics?
Right. I mean, like, think like Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal video, where he does the thing where he leans and then comes back up. Except this guy stayed at that angle and just managed to walk like that right through everybody, and managed to, like, Merry Christmas, hug a few people on his way back, all the way back to the back room, and then he's just out. Just not gonna see him again. It's like, all right, guess we can open presents now. Yeah.
And now it's official.
I had a great aunt and uncle So great aunt and uncle. So like my grandmother's, siblings or whatever.
Okay.
Great aunt and uncle who, as far as like Christmas Vacation go, think Bethany and Lewis, right? So Aunt Bethany that shows up and's kind of out of it, right? And then Lewis, like they were that couple, right? I mean, the lady, God bless her. I mean, just one of the sweetest, nicest Christian women you'd ever want to meet in your life. And her husband could not yawn without a cuss word coming out of his mouth. I mean, just I don't know how these two people ended up married. But so I'm watching like Lewis and Bethany, right?
Yes.
And her like, you hear that sound? You couldn't hear a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin plant. Like, that's these people, right?
Yes.
That's her, just the sweetest little, and then him. I kid you not, like, I've literally heard that man yawn, and just like, oh, damn, like,
Oh, wow.
like,
Yes.
I may have to beep that out for the show, but like, he used certain words as like conjunctions to connect thoughts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody, is that clear enough for everybody without me
makes
actually
sense.
getting into it? Like, I was down there at the, and oh goddamn, like
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, how are you married to this woman?
It's
Like, how did that happen?
surely
Right. So
there had to be a mistake here. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's part of my affinity for that movie is I can actually identify people within my own family, and God,
that makes sense.
God love him. Like my dad is kind of equal parts Davy Crockett and Clark Griswold, right? Or
Right.
like Jeremiah Johnson / Clark Griswold.
Right. Okay.
Could actually
see.
probably make it as a mountain man like Jeremiah Johnson. Great movie, by the way. Redford
Yeah.
flick. But has that sort of Clark Griswold streak in him as well.
Okay.
Like I grew up in a house out in the country, right? It wasn't actually that far outside the city limits, but you felt like you were really in the country. Like we had
Right.
one neighbor that we shared a fence with, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there's some people that live a little bit further down back behind us
Right.
that I never saw once, to my
Wow.
knowledge, ever in the time that I lived in that house. So we basically had this
Man.
one neighbor and just like, cow pasture and trees.
Right.
And yet, here's me and my dad out there putting Christmas lights on our house. Right. Like, who's going to see these? Like,
Yeah.
Right?
This makes
Like,
no sense.
no sense. Like, we're out there freezing our rear ends off, putting these Christmas lights on the house.
Right.
Basically for us. Nobody is driving out there unless they're coming to our house. Like, unless you live here or you live in that house that, right across the
Exactly.
fence from us. Nobody's going to see these lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing out here? Yeah.
We're trying to impress the wild animals.
But it's not like we're going to win the HOA contest, for the best decorated house at Christmas.
Maybe they'll drive out this way this year. It's,
Yeah, exactly. But then I
Yeah.
watched that movie and I'm like, I see what you're doing there. You're just out here avoiding the family.
Yeah. Just looking for something to do.
Yeah, exactly. A little nod here. Here, you work on that, Russ. Like I was Russ to his Clark in the
I see.
in the Christmas in the Christmas lights escapades.
See, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yep, that makes sense.
there's so much about that movie that I can sort of identify with, and I think that's why it's that I love it so much. And
Yeah.
I mean, there are scenes in that movie that I start laughing 5 minutes before they happen.
Just in
I know they're
anticipation.
coming, and like when Lewis burns down the tree,
Yeah.
and that fireball, like the way it's shot, right? Like the way you're looking into the living room, and you just see what looks like a flamethrower come through there.
Just come across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I start laughing probably 5 minutes before that every time. I know it's coming, and it just gets me every time. The visual of that and the way it was shot, like
Where it just appears from one side to the.
Yeah. And then when he gets his quote Christmas bonus, and it's the 1 year membership in the Jelly of the Month Club, and the rant that he goes on is one of the just all time best.
100%. Yeah.
Well, it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year, And then he's done, right? I mean, that rant that he goes on is just epic. All the names that he calls his boss, it's just, And here's one of those things, like kind of the subtle things that I like. So he goes through this entire rant of these just ridiculous insults he's calling this guy.
Yeah.
And he finishes it off, everybody probably knows the line I'm talking about, like, hallelujah, holy, where's the Tylenol? Where's the Tylenol is what kills me. Like,
yes. To finish it off with the...
Yeah.
Because that's the relatable part, right?
Yep.
You're like...
And where's the Tylenol?
Yeah. But, yep. That's a true to life.
Yeah. It's
I can
little
see my
thing.
grandpa saying that.
Yeah, it's little things like that. Cousin Eddie's speech when they're about to go sledding.
Yeah.
Putting the stuff on the sled and his reasons why he doesn't want it on his sled. Mm-hmm. About the metal plate in his head.
Right.
I mean, that whole little speech. I don't want this show to just be me quoting Christmas Vacation, so I'm not going to do it. I can.
Too late. We're going there now.
Right, but, that little speech is hysterically funny to me. But then the little things that Eddie does, like at the dinner table when he's about to cut the turkey, and Eddie says, "Save the neck for me, Clark."
Like, what?
Yeah. But coming from him, it makes perfect sense. Like, if you know that character, like, of course you want the neck. Right? Yeah. And the look that Chevy Chase gives him, when he says it.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so that's definitely my all-time favorite. You got some classics. Do you have a list of stuff that you've got to see every year?
I mean, it's you actually listed a couple of the old classics are what I have grown up with just because I spend Christmas with my family.
Sure.
At least the few days surrounding it. Yeah. And there's always, gotta have It's a Wonderful Life and the original Miracle on 34th Street. Couple of the old Bing Crosby ones.
Yeah.
Holiday Inn, White Christmas, ones like that for sure.
I was about to say, like, and just so you know, like, if you say anything that even rhymes with Hallmark, you're fired from the show. Like, just so you know.
So that's the problem, because that's the other thing that my mom gets into around this time of year, and it's almost become more of a, like, I'll see it coming on, and I'll look at my dad and just be like, how you're allowing this? You're really you're just allowing this to happen.
Where's the Tylenol?
In your house, man. Yeah.
You're about to launch into a rant of your own.
Yeah. I'm like, these are reruns at this point of ones that come on every year. Yeah. Which I get is, I mean, we watch the classics every year.
Sure.
But these are not classics. No. They're not in that category.
No.
They do not belong. And we're watching them as if they do. And it's the same thing. It's a formula. Same exact thing.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't understand how many times you can watch the exact same thing play out and be entertained by it.
Yeah. That's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Yeah.
That's a pet peeve right there.
Yeah.
Major Christmastime pet peeve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they're always set in the same setting. It's either like some town in the mountains or like New England. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Probably as far south as they would go, I would think would be maybe like Virginia.
Yeah.
Because if you get into the South and start trying to do one of these, it's just not going to work.
It's not going to work because you have to have the stereotypical. There has to be snow falling.
Exactly.
It has to be cold enough to wear all bundled up and
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. Yeah, can't just.
Yeah, because like here's something I'm mildly irritated by. It was near 80 degrees today. Right. I saw a mosquito in my car on the way over here. Winged spawn of Satan showed up in my car in December.
Yes.
Like, no.
Yeah, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah. So
that's the stuff you don't see in the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why, like, there's not going to be a Hallmark movie set anywhere down here.
Uh-huh.
Because, like you said, you have to have, like, the big culmination scene at the end.
Exactly.
And with the kiss under the mistletoe or in front of the Christmas tree outside, and then the snow magically starts falling unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If there's an unexpected snowfall down here, we're shooting each other over milk and toilet paper.
Exactly.
Right? That's not going to work for Hallmark.
Exactly. Yep.
100%.
Yeah. Whole different scenario down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, more of the classics in your family?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So those are kind of the main classics. For me personally, one I gotta go to is Elf. Just because.
That's a good call.
It's one of the newer ones.
Yep.
That's kind of starting to reach that category, I think.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the perfect character for it. Just outrageous.
Yes, and it is kind of so I think there's kind of a divide, I think, on people when it comes to Will Ferrell. I think some people just don't think he's that funny. Some people just think everything he does is funny. I happen to fall in the category like the dude makes me laugh. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think Elf is kind of the exception that proves the rule that he basically plays the same character in every movie.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very true.
He's a buffoon, a complete buffoon, who takes himself very seriously. Right?
Yes.
That's every character Will Ferrell plays in the movies.
That's a good way to put it.
Except Elf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I remember watching it for the first time, and he's doing, he's the very sweet, very innocent, and there's all the stuff that comes along with it, and it's funny. And the first time I watched it, I was waiting for him to snap.
The usual,
this is what Will Ferrell does. Like, even in the sketches that he did on Saturday Night Live, he would do like a real passive, kind of emasculated character, and then at one point towards the end of the sketch, he would just lose it, right, and say something ridiculous or like punch somebody or something like that. Like, so the first time I watched Elf, I was waiting for that to happen.
Right.
I was like, because this is Will Ferrell, but it doesn't.
Of course, it's gonna happen.
Right, like he played it straight, and it worked perfectly. Yep. Yeah, I mean,
He just didn't take himself seriously the whole movie.
Yeah. So it's kind of the exception that proves the rule, but it is a great one. And the casting of Bob Newhart as his dad at the North Pole is genius.
Perfect.
Whoever had that idea and made that happen, here's to you, because that was fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. An old. A classic old actor. I don't know if he ever even was in any Christmas movies back in the day or not, but
I don't remember.
He's, cemented a legend forever. And
he was.
That
was perfect casting.
Yeah,
and Peter Dinklage.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So
also,
So I would probably put that. That's in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially as far as some of the newer, and kind of the comedic,
genre,
subgenre.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, I mean, you can't compare any of these movies. Like, how can you talk about Elf and It's a Wonderful Life in the same sentence? Like, just don't. Right. You got to just separate the two and just say, okay, we got classic Christmas movies, and then we have these kind of Christmas movies. So,
speaking of It's a Wonderful Life, real quick, there's also another one I'm remembering from the ones my family sees every year is an old one called The Shop Around the Corner, which also has Jimmy Stewart in the main role. And it's kind of an off the beaten path one. It's not the traditional kind of
I don't know that movie. I've seen that. I may have to check that out because I like Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. I really like him too.
How can you not?
Exactly, yeah. Which is one of the reasons I wanted to see it, and so because it was kind of one of the later editions. I think I was a little bit older when that was added because none of us had seen it. My mom loved Jimmy Stewart, we all did, so we're like, okay, let's check it out, and been a staple ever since. It's a really good one.
All right, I'll have to check it out. I did read somewhere that It's a Wonderful Life. Jimmy Stewart did that not long after getting out of the Army after World War II.
Yes.
And
that's right.
People have kind of gone back and kind of, looked at it to see, like, and I forget who wrote the article, but it basically said like he may have had PTSD, and
Interesting.
and was drawing, on real life angst and anguish, and and that looks real, like it's
that would make sense.
Yeah,
if it wasn't that long, yeah. I wonder what the timeline is because that's interesting. I could see that being the case.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think we may be actually even a little long today, but
we're about good. Yeah.
I could talk Christmas movies for a long time, but today's show sponsored by Schnitzer's Deli. Cinnamon takes a backseat to no babka. If you're looking for holiday treats,
there we go.
Check out Schnitzer's. So anyway, like I said, we'll probably get one more of these in before Christmas. Might talk a little Christmas music next time.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
What's acceptable, what isn't. What I'm mildly irritated by on the Christmas when it comes to Christmas music.
There's a few of them.
Yeah, there's plenty. There's plenty. So have a good rest of the week. We'll be back next time. Snarky Parenthetical.